بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
शेख साहब हम लाइव
शुरू करें। हेलो,
शुरू कर लें।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला नबिय्यिना मुहम्मद व अला आलिहि वस्सहबिहि अजमईन। Welcome to our series of lessons about the book of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Furqan Baina Awliya Ar-Rahman wa Awliya Ash-Shaytan. It is very important to speak about Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah in this lesson before we proceed with the actual book. Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, who lived from 661 of Hijrah to 728, corresponding 1262 to 1327. So according to Hijrah, that is 7th century and the 8th century. And according to the Georgian calendar, 1262 to 1327, which is the 13th and 14th century. And I'm going to use the Georgian calendar's dates. Only it is easier for our audience to, our students to understand. But the main thing is that Hijrah calendar, you have to add only 600 to it to find out approximate date of the Georgian calendar. So 661 plus 600, it will become 1261, but actual date is 1262. That is very important to know, that period of time when Ibn Taymiyyah lived, because it is going to help us to find out the great jihad which Imam has done. What was the situation at that time, historically, socially, politically? All those things are very important for us to know, because this shows that what a great service this great man has done to Islam. That person, Ibn Taymiyyah, and we are going to speak about his life later, who wrote more than 300 books. Some people, they have counted more than that, but anyhow, 300 books, including the Fatawa of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, which was published in Saudi Arabia in 37 volumes. The last two volumes are the index. So it means these Fatawa are in 35 volumes. And then we also note that this great Imam, because of his opinions, whether related to Aqeedah or to Fiqh issue, he attracted a great opposition from the scholars of that time. And this is why they have impressed upon the rulers to get him into the prison. So he was imprisoned around 8 times. When I say 8 times, that is the greater period of imprisonment. And the shorter one, for example, a day or a week, that is not counted here. And we have to find out that what was the situation before Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, which actually needed such a person to guide the Ummah at this crucial time of the history. So let us start with the Crusades, who started attacking Palestine or Palestine in the first millennium, because that was the idea here in Europe, especially in England, France, Italy, Germany, that Jesus Christ, as they say, that is, he is going to come once again after 1,000 years. So the first millennium was a sign for that he might come. So this is how they prepared to come to Jerusalem, and they could not see Jerusalem in the hands of those people who are not sharing their faith. I mean, the Muslims. So we know that these crusades started in the 11th century, and in 1099, Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders, and it remained in their hands for the next 88 years until it was recovered, or it was won once again by a great Muslim ruler, Salahuddin by name, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. So Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, who liberated Jerusalem from their hands, that was 1187. And their rule actually started from 1171 till 1250, around 79 years. So that 79 years period was a great period in the history, first of all, because of that great victory which was secured by Salahuddin al-Ayyubi in 1187. He died 6 years later, and then he left his conquered areas, including Palestine, Syria, and Egypt, in the hands of his own sons, like Al-Afdal in Dimashq, which is known in English as Damascus, and Aziz Usman in Egypt, and Al-Zahir Ghazi in Halab, that is in Syria. And there is the fourth son as well. But it is very sad to know that such a great victory which was won by Salahuddin Ayyubi, that was not maintained by his sons. And they kept on fighting among themselves. And sometime their uncle, who is Al-Malik al-Salih Adil, he has to come to reconcile among them. And eventually he took the rule as well. And then after him, the rule was shared by his son Kamil and his brother Al-Muazzam. So that area, which is around 79 years, during all that period, Crusaders were coming once again to capture Jerusalem. Though the city of Jerusalem was liberated, but there were many parts of Palestine, especially the great castles on Mediterranean coast, like Haifa and Akka and many others. They were still in the hands of the Crusaders. So this is why they got a constant struggle and jihad against the Crusaders. And we also know that Crusaders realized that until they enter into Egypt, they would not be able to capture Jerusalem once again. So this is why one of the Crusades was directed towards Dimyat. Dimyat is just like a port city on Mediterranean in Egypt. And they tried many times to capture it. And at one stage, it has been captured by them. And the son of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, one of them, he has to make a treaty to get it back by giving Jerusalem once again to the Crusaders. So this is how, in a certain period of the history, it was given to Jerusalem was given to them once again, which remained in their hands for 13 years. So the rule of Ayyubi dynasty came to end in 1250, which means just 11 years before the birth of the great Imam in, as we said, in 1262. After Ayyubi dynasty comes the dynasty of Mamluk. Mamluk means the slaves. So what is the story of these slaves, which are known to be Mamalik al-Bahriya? There are two types, Mamalik al-Bahriya and Mamalik al-Burjiya. So their rule started from 1250 and it lasted for 267 years, from 1250 to 1517. In 1517, the Ottoman great emperor or Khalifa or Sultan Salim, he has defeated them, and then Egypt was ruled by the Ottomans after 1517. So Al-Mamalik, actually they were slaves. During the Ayyubi period or Ayyub dynasty, all the great warriors, Muslim warriors, they used to buy slaves from Southeast Asian origin, because there was always some fightings which took place in that area, especially the invasions of Genghis Khan and his successors. Just to note that Genghis Khan, whose name was Temujin, he was born in 1200, which was 600 Hijrah, which means that he was born 61 years before Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. So Genghis Khan's son, ALHAQQU Khan, he was the one who devastated Baghdad, and Abbasid kingdom, Abbasid Khilafate came to an end in 1258. 1258, which means 3 years before the birth of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. So it was a great event in the history of Islam. So those people who were fighting Abbasid, of course, they were warriors sometime. They were captured by the Muslims or by other forces, and they were an object for sale. So the Muslims leaders or Muslims commanders, they used to go to Caucasia and the other territories near Caucasia like Azerbaijan, Armenia, and they used to buy young slaves, or you can say boys. And then these boys are trained into fighting, and they become very skilled in fighting the wars. And this is how these slaves who were actually liberated and turned into commanders, at one stage after the dynasty of Ayyubiyin, they became so powerful that they took over and their rule started. It actually started from the wife of Al-Malik al-Adil, who was the ruler of Egypt at that time. His wife, Shadratul Dur, she was a slave girl who, of course, was liberated, and he married her. So Shadratul Dur, she was actually among those Mamalik. So Shadratul Dur, after the death of her husband, she called upon his son means her husband's son Turan Shah, who was at that time in Syria, to come and take the rule. So Turan Shah became the ruler, but later, through a conspiracy, he was killed. Shajaratul Dur married a Mamluk commander, Aybak, and from Aybak started the actual rule of Mamalik in Egypt. So when Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was born, it was the time of Mamalik. So all his encounters, all his sufferings, all his activities were during the times of Mamalik. So I just mentioned few names of those rulers. During that time, Ibn Taymiyyah was struggling and preaching and doing his jihad. And sometime he was actually in the battlefield with one of these rulers. When he was 17 years old, it was the time of Qalawun. That was 1279. And then there were some others like Al-Ashraf bin Qalawun. And then after that, his son Al-Nasir Muhammad bin Qalawun. And then Al-Adil Katbaga. And then Al-Mansur Lajin, 1297. And the one who was very important to note, that was Ruknuddin Bibars, 1309. And after him comes Al-Mansur Abu Bakr ibn Qalawun. That was the time, during his time, Ibn Taymiyyah was in his last imprisonment in Damascus, where he died in 1327. So among these Mamalik, there were those who gave him a hard time. There were those with whom Imam Ibn Taymiyyah has worked. And the last one, who was also a supporter of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, but because of a lot of pressure from the scholars of those days, he was forced to imprison him. And the last 2 years of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was spent in the Qal'a, or the castle of Damascus, where he died, though it was a prison where he was allowed to have his brother Sharafuddin with him, and also his pupil Ibn Qayyim, he was with him. So this is how he spent time with them. So we have to also note another incident which happened just, you can say, 2 years before the birth of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and that was the great event of Ain Jalut on 3rd September 1260. 3rd September 1260, Ain Jalut. That was the great battle between the Mongolian forces. ALHAQQ Khan himself, he was who has devastated Baghdad. He wanted to come and capture Middle East as well. So this is how he came to Palestine. He has already taken many of the Syrian towns, and now he was heading towards Damascus. At that time, the Egyptian ruler of Mamalik, whose name is Saifuddin Qutuz, assisted by his commander Ruknuddin Bibars. So these two names are very important in the history. Saifuddin Qutuz, who was the actual ruler of Egypt at that time, and his commander Ruknuddin Bibars, they came to Syria to fight him, to fight ALHAQQ Khan. ALHAQQ Khan, because of some reason, he has already left Palestine and Syria, but he left his commander, whose name is Katbaga as well, Katbaga. So that was a fighting between Katbaga and Saifuddin Qutuz and Ruknuddin Bibars. And we have to note as well a very interesting thing, that the cousin of ALHAQQ Khan, who was Baraka Khan, has already become Muslim, and then he sided with the Muslims. So you can see the forces are actually equal to each other, and the victory was in the hand of Saifuddin and Ruknuddin Bibars. That happened in 1260, and this is why the name of Saifuddin Qutuz would be remembered. But there was a sad event that his commander Ruknuddin Bibars, he wanted to capture the rule in his own hand. So while both of them with their soldiers or warriors, they were heading back towards Egypt to Cairo, and the whole Cairo was ready to celebrate this victory, and they wanted to welcome, give a very warm welcome to Saifuddin Qutuz. What happened that on their way to Cairo, a great conspiracy was done, and Ruknuddin Bibars with other commanders made this plan that at one point he's going to take the hand of Saifuddin Qutuz in such a way that he could not move, and then he should be attacked and should be killed. And this what happened, that he went to greet him in his tent on his way to Egypt, and as a token of greeting, he shook hand with him, but he kept on holding his hand firmly in such a way that if he wanted to use his sword or any other weapon, he could not do that. And that was a sign for other warriors beside him to attack. So they came back to Egypt, and the Egyptian people, they were ready to welcome Saifuddin Qutuz, but an announcer was announcing, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon Saifuddin Qutuz, and may Allah give power and strength to our leader, to our ruler, Ruknuddin Bibars. So the very same killer, Ruknuddin Bibars, was accepted, was declared as their sultan at that time, and that happened in 1260. And that was, as we said, just more than 1 year before the birth of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. So Ruknuddin Bibars was a great commander, and we can say that the victory of Ain Jalut was captured by both these two leaders. But this incident of killing Saifuddin Qutuz on the hand of Ruknuddin Bibars became a great token of shame for himself, though in his coming years of rule, he made great victories against the Crusaders and let them leave all those castles which they have captured. So during his rule, he has made great services later. So what we can say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon both of them. So that was a historical background. Now we come to the history or the life history of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. Their actual homeland was Harran. Now this Harran, if you go and see the map of Iraq, so it is very near to the river Dijla. So because these two rivers, Dijla and Furat, when the Furat is coming from Syria, and then they both join in Iraq itself. So, Harran is a place which is now in Turkey, but at that time it was part of Syria. The family of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah has settled down in Harran, but at that time Mongolian onslaught has started. Mongolian people are also known as Tatar. Normally they are known as Tatar, though we have to differentiate between the Mongolians, which later turned into Mughal, and Tatars. They are cousin by the relation, but because of their characteristics, they are different from each other. So because of the attacks of Mongolian at that time on Syrian towns, the father of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he has already migrated from Harran to Damascus when Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was just 7 years old. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's family is the family of scholars. His grandfather, Abul Barakat Majduddin Ibn Taymiyyah, he was a great scholar. He is the one who compiled a collection of hadiths called Muntaqa al-Akhbar. And this great book was explained by Imam al-Shawkani, which is known more to the people than the actual book Muntaqa al-Akhbar. So the explanation of Imam al-Shawkani is known as Nailul Awtar, which is very much known among the traditional circles. His own father, Shihabuddin Abdul Halim Ibn Taymiyyah, he was also a great scholar, and he became Shaykhul Hadith in Darul Hadith in Damascus. Taymiyyah actually is the grandmother of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, any great grandmother. Taymiyyah, she was a scholar, and she used to do a lot of dawah. And this is how the family is known by the name of that lady, Taymiyyah. Then comes Ibn Taymiyyah Ahmad. His name is Ahmad. Taqiyuddin is his laqab. Abu Abbas, that is his kunya, who was born on 10th Rabiul Awwal 661, and which we said that it is 1262 according to the Georgian calendar. Both, all these three persons, the grandfather, his father, himself, they are all scholars. But the grandfather is much known, and Ibn Taymiyyah is known more than both of them. So it is said that his father became just like a star between the sun and the moon. The sun and the moon. He is a star, but the star, of course, does not appear when there is a light of the sun. Ibn Taymiyyah, who memorized Quran in a very young age, and his hifz, or his faculty of memorizing was so strong that right in his childhood, he could remember a great number of ahadith and then relate them with their asanid without looking into the book itself. And he was not only a scholar of Quran and hadith, but also a scholar of Arabic language, Arabic grammar as well. This is why when the great grammarian of Andalus, Ibn Hayyan, came and he met Ibn Taymiyyah, he was so impressed that he made a great qasida, a poem glorifying Ibn Taymiyyah. But when he started discussing with Imam Ibn Taymiyyah some issues of grammar, and he got a great respect for his own teacher. That teacher means the great name in Nahw or in grammar, Ibne Sibawayh, not Ibn Sibawayh itself. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said to him, Sibawayh is not so great as you think. He has made mistakes, around 80 mistakes in the grammar itself. So when Ibn Hayyan heard this criticism of his own sheikh, he became so angry that he did not praise Imam Ibn Taymiyyah at all, but started writing against him. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's asatiza, or their teachers, are more than 200 sheikh. And he has mastered all the books of Arabic, including Quran, Hadith. Of course, Quran is the book of Allah, the Ahadith and books of Fiqh and Nahaw, and logic as well, al-Mantiq, and even he got a good knowledge of philosophy, because later he is going to write against all the misnotions of philosophy and also about the logic. At the age of 22, when he was just 22 years old, after the death of his father Abdul Halim in 682, he was still 22 years old, he became Shaykhul Hadith in the place of his father in Darul Hadith, Damascus, and he delivered his first lesson there. And then he was given the opportunity to give tafsir lesson in the great mosque of Damascus, Al-Jami Al-Amawi. He did Hajj later, and in 693, which means that 661 and then 71, 81, 91, 30 years old, 31 years old, he wrote that famous book, As-Sarim al-Maslul ala Shatim al-Rasul. What happened that a Christian named Asaf, he insulted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he campaigned against that person with another alim, but instead of being admired, the ruler at that time in Syria, he imprisoned both these scholars, and Asaf was not captured or was not detained. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah wrote that book, As-Sarim al-Maslul ala Shatim al-Rasul, the sword which is open on the abuser of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And later he became Shaykhul Hanabila. When the Shaykhul Hanabila of Damascus, Zainuddin ibn Manji, died, he became Shaykhul Hadith in Al-Madrasa Al-Hanbaliyah. Now, let us see that the first great opposition which came, that was because of an istifta. A question came from Hama. Hama is a town in Syria. In that questionnaire, there was questions about the sifat, the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like summa stawa ala al-arsh. What does istiwa means? And the hadith that the hearts of Bani Adam are in the two fingers of Ar-Rahman, and he keeps on turning them as he likes. And then the hadith that Allah Al-Jabbar, the attribute of Al-Jabbar, he is going to put his foot in the fire to make it calm down. So he wrote the explanation of all these attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is very well known to us because we keep on reading about all the Asma'ul Husna, the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his attributes. We have done it many times. So this is what Imam Ibn Taymiyyah has written in his reply to that questionnaire, which is known as Al-Aqeedah al-Hamawiyya al-Kubra. Al-Hamawiyya, that is attributed to Hama, from where the question comes. So when he explained that we believe in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has attributed to himself, and but without takyif, without saying how, and without ta'til, without saying that, without negating them altogether, we just believe in them as it was said by Allah himself. So that was the famous explanation we know about all the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At that time, the Hanafi Qadi Jalaluddin, he stood against him and he said that you must come to me and discuss with me. And when Imam Ibn Taymiyyah did not respond to him, he started campaigning against Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. And then there was this meeting of a dialogue in front of Shafi'i Qadi Imamuddin, where he replied to all their questions until they were satisfied. In 699 of Hijrah, there was another invasion by a Mongol commander, but this time this Mongol commander was a Muslim commander, Qazan. His name is Mahmud Qazan. He is also a grandson of Genghis Khan. He has become Muslim, but it does not mean that their lust for capturing more and more land has died down. No, he came just to capture more land. So when he came to very near to Damascus, then the ruler of Egypt, Muhammad ibn Qalawun, at that time, he came to Damascus and defeated him. But even after his retreat, the retreat of Qazan, there was still a danger that they would come back once again. And this is what happened. He came back, and then Imam Ibn Taymiyyah with a number of ulama, he went to visit him. And he visited him between Damascus and Hims. And in that sitting with Qazan, where people were scared even to speak, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was so courageous to speak to him that sometimes his voice becomes very loud, and he would come very, very near to Qazan, as if he is touching his knees to his knees. And he was telling him that what type of Muslim you are. Even your father and grandfather, they did not do such things which you have been doing. And you want to capture the Muslim land. That is not good for you to do it. So Qazan listened to him, and he was very surprised that there is a man of such a caliber. And in the end, he said, please make dua for me. And Imam Ibn Taymiyyah made this dua that, oh Allah, if Qazan has come out to serve your cause and to raise the banner of Islam high, then Allah support him. And if he has come out for the worldly benefits and the worldly gains, then you should be sufficient to him. And Qazan was just saying, Ameen, Ameen. He might not have heard what he was saying. So Qazan went back, but later his armies entered into Damascus, and then it was a great disaster for the people of Damascus. Still, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah went to meet their local commander Bolai and asked him to set free all those Muslims who were detained by him, and he has to do it. So it shows that how Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was very blunt and very courageous in addressing such a tyrant ruler at that time. And we also read about his jihad against al-munkarat. For example, during the time of Saifuddin Qabzaq, there were many places for liquor and for wine which has been opened. So he went with his supporters and with his peoples to break all these shops and to break all the glasses and containers of wine, the bottles of wine. And in the very same way, he also did his jihad against the people of the mountains. When we say the people of the mountains, we mean the Christians, the Batiniya factions, like the Rus and Ismaili factions. So these people who welcomed the Crusaders And they welcomed also the Mongolians' attacks. So when the Damascus rulers or Egyptian rulers did jihad against them, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah supported that jihad, and he went with them, and then he invited the leaders of these factions, and he explained to them the Islamic Aqeedah. And even if they don't, even if they did not believe in the Islamic Aqeedah, they accepted to return all what they have snatched from the Muslim soldiers. Next, we can also say what happened in 702 of Hijrah, when once again there were rumors that the Tatars are coming once again. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah came to the deputy rulers of Damascus, and he said to him that this time you should come out and fight them, and I can tell you that inshallah you are going to be victorious. So they say, how could you be so certain about the victory? He said, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised it. In Surah Al-Hajj, he said, وَمَنْ عَاقَبَ بِمِثْلِ مَا أُوقِبَ بِهِ ثُمَّ بُغِيَ عَلَيْهِ لَيَنْصُرَنَّهُ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَعَفُوٌّ غَفُورٌ. And the person who retaliates with the same thing by which he has been retaliated, ثُمَّ بُغِيَ عَلَيْهِ, and then there is a rebel against him, Allah is going to give him victory. And indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving and He is merciful. So he was so confident that he said that you are going to be victorious. And someone said to the Imam, say Insha'Allah, Insha'Allah, we would be victorious, Insha'Allah. He said, Insha'Allah, haqiqatan la ta'liqan. Haqiqatan la ta'liqan. Yani I say Insha'Allah, certainly, not ta'liqan, not as a condition. Because the word Insha'Allah means maybe that if Allah wills. He said here, tahqiqan la ta'liqan. And actually this time, yes, they got the victory as well. So there are other incidents in which he also accompanied the Damascus or Syrian forces or Egyptian forces in jihad. We can also take a few examples of his jihad against bid'ah, against innovations. For example, there was a rock where the ignorant Muslim used to go and do a lot of ceremonies and rituals. So he went there and he smashed that rock completely. In the same way, he has seen a person like Salih al-Rifa'i, and his people are known as Rifa'iyya, and they used to say that we are true. Why? Because we can show you how we enter into the burning fire, and the fire is not going to make any effect upon our bodies. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said to the Amir or to the governor that these people asked them to take a bath, wash themselves completely, even washing themselves with anything which can remove any impressions of any oil upon their bodies. Because actually there was a hila, a device with those people before entering into the fire. They used to oil themselves, put some oil on their bodies, so fire is not going to affect them. So he said they should wash themselves and then they should enter into the fire, and let us see what is going to happen. He wrote another book in Aqeedah which is known as Al-Wasitiyah, because this question came from Wasit, the city of Wasit, so it is known as Wasitiyah. It is one of the famous books of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and people started asking him questions, so he explained in a big meeting. In the same way, there was also dialogues about the Aqeedah of Ibn al-Arabi. Ibn al-Arabi, who died in 638, which means before the birth of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. So Ibn Arabi is known with his different ideas like Wahdatul Wujud, like Istighasa bil Amwat, his saying about the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when he criticized Ibn Arabi, it became a great issue. He was asked to come to Egypt, and then there was this meeting held, and the one who was made as a judge between Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and his opponents was the Qadi, the Maliki Qadi, Ibn Makhluf. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said that how could you be my judge when you are opposing me in all what I believe? So you can't be my judge at all. So this man, then he recommended the ruler at that time, and as I told you, they were all Mamalik at that time, that he should be imprisoned. So he was imprisoned with both his brothers, Sharafuddin Abdullah and Zainuddin Abdul Rahman. So he remained there for 2 years, and after that he was released. But still, he started doing his dawah in Egypt, and at that time, he wrote a letter to his mother, in which shows how caring he was at that time for his family. He wrote to his mother in Damascus that why I'm not coming back, because there is a great opportunity for me to do dawah in Egypt, because the people in Egypt during that time, they were involved with a lot of bid'ah, so they need some dawah. He remained there, but once again, there is another Sufi leader, or Shaykh Sufiya Ataullah al-Iskandari. Ataullah al-Iskandari, because of him, he was imprisoned once again, and he remained in the prison, but he was released after a short time. So this is how his life was, either in the prison, or if he is not in the prison, then he was out to do his dawah, and also to not to tolerate any munkar at all. For example, once it was said that it was asked by the Christians in Egypt that they should be allowed to have white turbans and white turbans upon their heads like the Muslims. So the other scholars, they were about to agree to it, but he said to Sultan that in the past we have seen that so many spies have come into the ranks of the Muslims with Muslim dresses and Muslim turbans, and because crusaders were still there, and they are trying to damage the Muslim rule. So he said that they should not be allowed to take the white turbans as they are asking, and eventually the Sultan has accepted his opinion. And so this is how he was subjected to sometimes even actual harming, bodily harm, and that happened in 711. But still, he has forgiven all those people who started to attack him. Such issues which are related to fiqh, because of that, he was also subjected to imprisonment. That was the issue of three talaqs to be counted as one talaq. It is a very famous issue. And a person who is giving a conditional talaq. And that started from the times of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, that he used to say to the people that you have to make allegiance to the Khalifa by saying that if I'm not true in my bay'ah, then there should be a talaq to my wife. So this type of conditional talaq was known, and it is known as al-hilfu bit-talaq. Al-hilfu bit-talaq, and Imam Ibn Taymiyyah gave his fatwa that a conditional talaq is not a talaq at all. It is just like a qasam or a swearing, an oath. It should be treated like an oath. So if a person does not abide by his oath, he has to give the kafara of the qasam, the kafara of that oath, which is fasting for 3 days, or fasting for 3 days, or feeding 10 masakin, or clothing them. So that opinion was also very famous of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, and because of that, once again he was imprisoned for around 5 months and 18 days. And then comes the last blow upon him, when he has he got a previous fatwa about visiting the 3 sacred places of Islam in the light of the hadith, La tushaddu rihal illa ila salasati masajid. A person should not take special journey for visiting, except for 3 mosques, which are Al-Haram of Makkah, and Al-Haram of Medina, and Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, Jerusalem. So this fatwa, which was issued 17 years ago, it was brought out by some of the scholars, and they started campaigning against him. And this is how, once again, he was put into the prison. And that was, as I said, the last imprisonment of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, which started on 7th Shaban, 726 of Hijrah. 726 of Hijrah, which is, as we can see, that it was 2 years before his death. His brother Zainuddin was allowed, Ibn Qayyim was allowed, and he was in that castle in Damascus. But still people, they used to write to him istifta'at, asking fatwa, and he used to write these fatawa. And as we said, that Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was a so knowledgeable person that he has compiled so many books. One thing we have to mention here, that he did not marry at all. He did not marry at all. And some people would say why he did not do that. But anyhow, not every person is perfect. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he thought that his time should be devoted all to dawah and to serve the needs of the people. And then he participated into jihad itself. Even in one of these encounters with the Mongolian peoples, he said to the commander, tell me that place where I should fight, where the death is imminent, that when there would be a great possibility that I would be martyred, I would be killed. And so he pointed to a certain hill where the fighting was going on. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was actually participating into jihad as well. People of Baghdad at that time, they wrote letters to the rulers and asking to set him free. But anyhow, he was not freed. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah said about that time that even if I am in prison, I think فيه خير كثير ومصلحة كبيرة. فيه خير كثير ومصلحة كبيرة. That was during the time of Al-Mansur bin Qalawun. That was the ruler. And as I said, that this ruler was supportive of Ibn Taymiyyah. Before that imprisonment, what happened? That the people, they have conspired against Al-Mansur Qalawun, and with a fatwa of ulama, he was relieved from the rule, and he remained outside the rule for a short period, during which another Mamluk person became the ruler. And later, he was brought, Mansur Qalawun was brought back to the rule itself. So Mansur Qalawun said to Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, look, see to all these fatwa and all these letters which were written by your opponents, and they were asking for your deaths because of their views. So now this is the time you should write a fatwa against them, and this fatwa that all such people who were writing against Ibn Taymiyyah, the head among them should be killed. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah knew that this is not just because of him, it is because of Mansur Qalawun himself, because Mansur Qalawun himself wanted to take vengeance upon all those ulama who gave fatwa to take him, or to take the caliphate from him, or the rule from him. So he knew that this is not just for the sake of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. But anyhow, he said to him very clearly that as for myself, I have forgiven all my opponents, and as for killing them or making a fatwa to kill them, I would say no. I would never write such a fatwa. He said to him very clearly, man, these are the scholars. If they were killed, the knowledge is going to disappear from this country. So I'm not going to write this fatwa at all. I forgive them all. And Sultan Qalawun has to accept Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's ruling, and he did not write this fatwa, but because of his refusal, or because of some once again a pressure from some of the scholars like Al-Qadi Abdullah Al-Afna'i, against whom Imam Ibn Taymiyyah has written this fatwa about istighasa, that istighasa or seeking help from dead is not allowed. This Qadi Abdullah Al-Afna'i became dead against him. We can say that because of his recommendation, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was once again taken to the prison. So in the prison, he used to write his fatwa, but at the end, even the ink and the pen and the paper, everything was taken away from him, and he was not allowed to have any business to write anything. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah at that time, he started writing with the coal, and he used to take the coal, and with the coal, whatever pieces of paper he got, he used to write the fatwa, and these fatwa were delivered outside the castle. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah used to read Quran with his brother Sharafuddin and Imam Qayyim from beginning to the end. So in this way, he finished 80 times. 80 times he finished reading the Quran. On his 81st recital, he came to the ayah, the last ayah of Surah Al-Qamar. That is, إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَنَهَرٍ فِي مَقْعَدِ صِدْقٍ عِنْدَ مَلِيكٍ مُقْتَدِرٍ. Muttaqin people would be in gardens and beside the rivers, beside a great king who got all the power and strength in the Malik in Muqtadir. That was the last ayah he read of the Quran, and with this recital of ayah, he breathed his last. He died. And that is after an illness of just 22 days. So the death of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was announced from the minarets of the castle, and people started running towards the castle. And the first prayer of Al-Janazah was held in the castle itself, and then his body was taken to the great mosque of Damascus, Al-Jami Al-Amawi, where his brother Zainuddin Abdul Rahman, who was with him in the prison, he led the prayer once again. And there is a cemetery in near to that place, which is known as Maqbaratul Sufiya, where he was buried with his other brother Sharafuddin, who died before him, Sharafuddin Abdullah. And it is said that his janaza was such a big janaza that never the people have seen such a janaza. It was said that around 15,000 women were there in janaza, and among the people from 60,000 to 200,000, that was estimated. Around from 60,000 to 200,000 people were there. And what about the prayer in his absence, which is known as Salatul Janaza al-Ghaib? They say that in each and every province, every country, people have prayed Salatul Janaza upon him. Even in China, where it was announced, As-salatu ala tarjuman al-Quran. As-salatu ala tarjuman al-Quran. Prayer upon the great explainer, the one who explained Al-Quran. And also Salatul Janaza was held in Yemen and other places. So these are a few things which we have covered about his life. And in the end, let me say that one of his great achievements is such great scholars who were his pupil or who benefited from his writing, like Ibn Qayyim, like Ibn Kathir, like Al-Zahabi, and many others. And Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he himself was known not only with knowledge, but also with his taqwa and his piety, his courageousness, and also with his generosity. Yani you can say that this person who did not take any post in any rule at all, just people used to bring some hadiyah and some gift to him, and whatever money he got, because he got no family, no one to maintain, he used to give all what he receives to the poor. And if he got nothing, it happened to him that once a person asked him for something, and he said, I got nothing, but he took him to an alley, and then he took out his shirt and said to him, take that shirt and sell it, and then you can maintain your need. And he used to say, that is a part of a poem, Anal Mukaddi, Anal Mukaddi, وهكذا كان أبي وجدي أنا المكدي أنا المكدي. I am a beggar, I am a beggar. هكذا كان أبي وجدي. And this is how it was my father and my grandfather. He used to sit after Fajr prayer until the sun has risen, all doing the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and used to say, this is my silah, and my weapon, which makes me strong throughout the day. And let us just mention few of his great books. For example, we know about the book which he has written against the Christian belief, Al-Jawab al-Sahih liman baddala din al-Masih. And he was a great critic of logic, al-Mantiq as well. So this is why he got his book Naqdul Mantiq, a refutation of logic, and also Ar-Raddu al-Mantiqiyin. So that is another book about the logic itself. And in Tawheed, we have already mentioned Al-Hamawiyya, Al-Wasitiyya, and then a book which is known as Al-Wasita Bain Al-Khalq Wal-Makhluq. Another great effort which he has done, that is to refute all the false claims of Shia, Rawafiz. Actually, there was a great Shia alim, Ibn al-Mutahhir al-Hilli, Ibn al-Mutahhir al-Hilli, and it is interesting to know that one of the Mongol commander Olija, he became Muslim on his hand, and this Olija later was known as Khuda Banda Khan, but he entered into Shiaism. So Ibn al-Mutahhir al-Hilli, he has written this book about the Shia faiths and Shia notions, Minhajul Karama fi Ma'rifat al-Imam. And Imam Ibn Taymiyyah refuted this book in his great book Minhajul Sunnah. So this Minhajul Sunnah was summarized by al-Zahabi by the title of Al-Muntaqa. And then Imam Ibn Taymiyyah got this great book, which is Iqtida al-Sirat al-Mustaqim Mukhalafat Ashab al-Jahim, which is about all the traditions and other type of innovations by the non-Muslims. He has also written the tafsir of many surah of Al-Quran. There is no tafsir right from the beginning till the end, but there are tafsir for many surah which were collected and compiled by later compilers. So these are the few things which we can cover in today's lesson. And I think that is enough to have an idea about the great jihad of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah in the field of knowledge, in the field of dawah, in the field of refuting all the innovations, bid'ah, and also against the philosophy by which people were so impressed during that time that even among the Muslim scholars like Ibn Rushd, Abu Ali Sina, Aristotle, Arastu, that is just like a great sanam, a great deity for them. So Imam Ibn Taymiyyah is the one who is going to destroy and smash that deity. And so this is how his writings about philosophy are very important. In the very same way, al-mantiq, the logic, and because the philosophical books, normally they are based upon al-mantiq, upon logic. So if you have to understand these books, you must have an understanding of the logic itself. But Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that this, even before that logic, before that people used to have Aqeedah. There is no need to understand the Aqeedah through the logic itself. And this is why he said that if a person is very intelligent, he does not need the logic at all. And if a person is not intelligent at all, then he is not going to, the logic is not going to benefit him at all. In both ways, so this is what he means, that in both ways there is no benefit in the logic itself. So to understand Al-Imam Ibn Taymiyyah and his times during which he lived, it would be a great enjoyment to read his books. And Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we are going to start with our lesson from Al-Furqan Bain Awliya Ar-Rahman wa Awliya Shaitan from our next lesson. وجزاكم الله خيرا وصلى الله تعالى على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله.
Do we have time for one or two questions, or shall we end here?
Yes, if you can. Yes. If there is any question, brothers, sisters. Hello? Yes?
You ready to go to big school? The school's
I think there's no question, Sheikh, so we'll just end it here, inshallah.
Thank you. Jazakumullah.
Inshallah, next week, inshallah, we'll start the book, inshallah, students. So share the posters and share all the courses of Shaykh Suhaib Hasan, different WhatsApp groups, and Jazakumullah khair.
بارك الله فيكم حياكم الله
مرحبا مرحبا.
الله يعافيك. السلام عليكم.
السلام عليكم.